What's going on, fight fans? This is Capital Combat. The name says it all. I'm Rob Jarrell, and this is the recap to this past weekend's Showtime boxing matchup. Premier Boxing Champions featuring Jarrett Swift Hurd taking on Francisco Santana in a junior middleweight matchup, and Danny Swift Garcia taking on Ivan the Terrible or Ivan the Killer Redkach in a welterweight matchup to lead to a fight against Manny Pacquiao or Errol Spence Jr. I had a brain fart there for a second, but let's get started. So in the undercard, and if you didn't watch it, Stephen Fulton won his matchup as a WBO eliminator for the junior featherweight, light featherweight. I have to double check that, but he won this matchup, and he'll be looking to take on the champion in his particular division. Won fairly handily. But with Jarrett Swift Hurd, he was making that comeback against Francisco Santana from a loss in 2019 to Julian J. Rock Williams, who recently lost to Jason Rosario. So he'll be looking to fight the winner of the rematch between Julian Williams and Jason Rosario, unless they decide to do a trilogy, and I hope not, because Jarrett Hurd should be right next in line. So in this fight, I picked Hurd to win and knock out Francisco Santana by about the 6th round, maybe the 8th, but I felt that he had the power and the size and the pedigree to take out Francisco, who is going to come forward, does nothing sexy. He's there to be hit, and he'll take a punch as long as he can give a punch, and he'll just keep moving forward. From what we saw, there was a negotiation. I think it took place at 156 instead of 154. But Hurd's a really big guy. I have no idea what happened there. And Francisco Santana would kind of change divisions between junior middleweight and welterweight. So he was the smaller guy in this fight. And many guys that fight Jarrett Hurd are the smaller guys in this fight, and this one was no different. He had a height, reach, and weight advantage in this fight, and it was noticeable. Francisco Santana, who can lay some leather, especially with his left hook, he really couldn't do anything power-wise versus Hurd. Now, Hurd, on the other hand, usually is the type of guy who imposes his will, kind of throws that left hook, and really just wears you down and bludgeons you to death. But he changed trainers, and you could tell because in this fight, he was going against a guy who would be there to allow her to work on a few things under this new trainer. You could tell that he switched styles back and forth. He started out the fight utilizing the jab, keeping Francisco Santana at the end of that jab, and just kind of moving backwards, working on his movement, not consistently going forward and staying in the pocket or even getting caught up against the ropes. He jab, maybe throw a hook, but mostly working on that right hand. Also, you could tell his defensive stance, to me, changed a little bit. He wasn't just in a high guard, or it wasn't just blocking punches with his face. He had more of a shoulder roll guard, behind the shoulder, right hand up, working the jab, and just kind of throwing the short right and the looping left. And it worked for the most part versus Santana, because he was going to come forward. He was not going to be detracted by any opponent from coming forward, because that's what he does. He brings a workman-like conduct and style to boxing matches, which works for him and works against him. He's given tough fights to both Jamal Charlo and Julian Williams, but he's had some where he lost to Kareem Mayfield by knockout, then again by decision. So his performance has been up and down, but when he's had to step up, he's either lost razor close decisions to up-and-comers early in their career. But he wasn't fighting a guy that was green. He was fighting a guy in Hurd that was there to fight, work on some things, and you can tell that Hurd was just having his way. He would switch up sides where he would stay in the pocket, roll, head movement. He wouldn't duck down too much all the time. He would throw that short right, especially when there was a jab. And Santana would not put himself in position to throw his left hook. And a lot of times he was giving resistance and punching, but there was really nothing that really worked. Maybe the over the top right where you could throw over the shoulder of Hurd, but mostly that's the best that he could do. Hurd on the other hand will work the right, come with the left, work the body a little bit, but the one thing that worked consistently for him was the right uppercut. In some rounds he'll fight from the outside and he'll throw that right uppercut from distance. And then other times when he's in the pocket, he will measure it, boom, 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 boom. So he could come up, pop the head up, left, come back with the right, boom, boom. And it was really just a lot of arm punches, but he was just using that upper body movement to have the blows glance off, turn with them, and throw his own response shots. Unfortunately, because it's Francisco Santana, who is not that explosive, he's not that fast, and he's only but so accurate, he really does like to wait for you to open up and even punch with you, and maybe kind of feint to the right, come back with the left. But it wasn't much that he had here. Hurd was just much more accurate, quicker off the trigger, and really setting everything up fairly well. He got the knockdown in the 10th round. I think it was like the last 10 seconds from a right uppercut. Again, that was something that worked for the entire fight. So with that unanimous decision, he admitted there were some things he was coming out to win, get the decision, maybe work on some things with the new trainer, take it into his next fight. It's kind of hard to say who his next fight would be because all four belts are kind of wrapped up with Charlo possibly fighting another rematch against his last opponent, Tony Harrison, and then Jason Rosario possibly taking an immediate rematch versus J. Rock Williams. Let's move on to the main event. We had Danny Swift Garcia taking on a very game Ivan Redkach, who had gotten his most signature win in this last fight with the TKO knockout of Devin Alexander. Danny Garcia had a really good short win versus Adrian Granado. So he was looking to kind of take a step up. He was looking to having to fight Errol Spence Jr. in this particular fight, but we all know that Errol Spence Jr. was in an accident after his last fight with Sean Porter. So he took another southpaw in Ivan Redkach, who was moving up. I think this was like maybe his second or third fight at welterweight. And I thought that Danny Garcia would get him out of there in about 11 rounds. It could go to difference, but I saw 11 rounds where he could break him down. And he really just outclassed Redkach. He was very patient. He worked the body well. And he is officially a two-handed puncher. For someone like Danny Garcia, at some point he would rely so much on his left hook that he would telegraph it. And it made a few things difficult, but he's much more patient. He likes to work from mid-range, control distance. And what he did very well is control footwork and the ring. He moved to his left consistently. His foot placement was perfect when he lined Redkach up with that right hand. And he had a lot of good body work. Now, Redkach started off throwing that jab upstairs, two to the body. And he landed it quite early from distance. But Danny Garcia would throw his own sweeping right hook to the body and would come upstairs with his left. And once he started timing Redkach and started out punching him, he would gradually raise his punch output, and it just became target practice for Garcia. And he looked great versus this southpaw. I think the last southpaw he fought was Robert Guerrero a few years ago, which he looked all right, but he looked much more polished in his fight. He knew exactly what he wanted to do. And that's all that you can really ask for him. He didn't dip down as much, but he would dip to his left, lead right, sweeping right, come over the top, follow back with the right. Once he started letting those combinations go, Redkach really didn't have anything for him, to the point where I think in the 9th or 10th round, he bit him on the neck or the shoulder. And I don't understand the biting. I mean, it's not a street fight. Just if you in the clinch, just push him off. You ain't got to bite him. I mean, unless you're hungry. I mean, you can wait. I mean, finish getting your ass kicked first. But it was a really good outing for Danny Garcia, something that we expected. I would have liked to see him maybe press a little bit more from the knockout, as Ivan Redkach really didn't have the power to stop Danny Garcia. Danny Garcia was maybe not quite the taller or longer fighter, but he was definitely the bigger of the two, and you can tell. And you have to be wary of Danny Garcia, because once he starts sitting on his punches, control the distance, controlling the movement around the ring. I mean, there were sometimes he would just really pivot, turn, pivot to his left, and throw the sweeping right, left over the top, that Ivan Redkach really had no answer for. I guess his next fight will either be, or he's gunning for a fight against Errol Spence Jr. or Manny Pacquiao. We know Spence has a belt. I think Manny Pacquiao has the WBO and Errol Spence has the WBC. I think. I have to double check that. It's a possibility that one has the IBF and Terrence Crawford has one. Has two. I have to double check that. But that's all I got for you today. Tell us what you think. Did you enjoy this weekend's fights? How did both guys look in their comebacks? Were Hurd looking to take another step up, get his belts back, and Danny Garcia challenging for whatever belts there's left in the division? Comment down below. If you haven't already subscribed to this channel. Share with your friends. If you have subscribed, hit that bell icon so you get the latest and greatest from Capital Combat. Me and Hakeem will be doing at least 2 videos every week, whether it's previews, reviews, recaps, special interests, whatever. We're trying to bring it to you. And until next time, fight on.
This is round 1 and you've already lost. They don't seem to see that everything we've done is coming and gone. My fists are on.